are not paranoid. You are being influenced constantly. The most unsettling part is that you rarely notice it. Every conversation, every glance, every favor you agree to under pressure might be far less innocent than it appears. Behind the ordinary rhythm of life, people, sometimes even those closest to you, use subtle psychological tactics to bend your choices and reshape your sense of self. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned that morality often acts as a quiet instrument of control, a soft cage designed to keep you obedient enough to be accepted. Carl Jung echoed a similar truth when he wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." Both understood that power often hides beneath what looks like care, tradition, or kindness. Manipulation does not always roar. The most effective forms arrive dressed in charm, cloaked in smiles, and whispered in words that seem harmless. That is why today we begin a journey through the most common psychological traps that others may use to guide your behavior without your awareness. By the end of this path, you will not only recognize these patterns, you will be able to resist them. Think of the look someone gives you after you say no. It is not anger. It is disappointment, wrapped in silence that feels heavier than words. This is the guilt hook, one of the oldest manipulation tools. It does not attack your logic. It attacks your morality. It convinces you to question yourself. Was I selfish? Too harsh? Too cold? But what really happens is that they place the weight of their discomfort on your shoulders. Your desire to relieve that discomfort becomes the lever they pull. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." When someone uses guilt, they make you argue not with them but with yourself. Your mind becomes the battlefield and your boundaries are the prize. The silence of disappointment can bend you faster than anger ever could. How do you defend yourself? By breaking the contract that your goodness depends on their approval. When you say no and they try to make you feel small, hold your ground. Do not explain. Do not justify. You owe no apology for guarding your energy. Their discomfort is not your emergency. Guilt only works when you believe that kindness means self-abandonment. True kindness includes yourself. Now consider another tactic, the shifting mirror. You walk away from a conversation convinced you are the problem, even though you were the one mistreated. That is no accident. It is a trick designed to twist reality until you question your own memory. You confront them about a lie or a cruel remark, but instead of addressing it, they deflect. They say, "Why are you always so dramatic? Maybe if you weren't so sensitive, I wouldn't have to react that way." And suddenly you are no longer holding them accountable, you are defending yourself. This is an emotional illusion. They are not denying what happened. They are attacking your certainty. And in that fog of doubt, they win. Why? Because the human brain longs for peace. When your certainty is shaken, you grasp for resolution, even if it means accepting false blame. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." A manipulator thrives by planting doubt deep enough to make you believe their version of events. They do not need to overpower you. They only need you to question yourself. How do you fight back? Anchor yourself to the facts. Remember how you felt before they twisted the story. Do not chase their narrative. Stand still in your own. Say calmly, "This is not about my feelings. This is about your actions." Then stop. Silence is the cure for distortion. It starves manipulation of the chaos it requires. The truth is simple. When the mirror is broken, you finally see who was hiding behind the cracks. There is a kind of openness that is not real. A kind of vulnerability that is not meant for connection but for control. Here is how it works. Someone reveals a deeply personal story, a painful memory, or a raw confession. It feels intimate. You feel chosen, trusted. Your guard lowers. But beneath that moment, something feels off. Not all vulnerability is genuine. Some people use it as bait, a fast track to your empathy. It is designed to win your loyalty before you even know who they truly are. This is the trap of false vulnerability. It is far more common than most realize. You hear their pain and instantly feel the weight of obligation. You think, I cannot walk away now. I must be there for them. I owe them. But true vulnerability never comes with invisible strings. Real openness unfolds slowly, mutually, and without hidden demands. Why do people use this tactic? Because emotional confession disarms us. It flips the power dynamic. They present weakness, and suddenly you are cast as the caretaker. In reality, they are not sharing to connect. They are sharing to bind you. Nietzsche once observed, people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. And here the illusion is that their brokenness makes them safe. But it also makes you responsible for them, and that responsibility is the trap. They are not asking for your support. They are demanding an emotional debt you never agreed to. So how do you protect yourself? Pay attention to timing. Authentic vulnerability develops gradually, in balance, and without agenda. But when someone reveals something intense at the very start, and then immediately asks for your time, your silence, or your sacrifice, pause. Ask yourself, do I feel genuinely connected or do I feel cornered? If their openness leaves you feeling obligated instead of safe, it is not intimacy. It is entrapment. Stand firm. Your empathy is precious, but it should never be weaponized against you. True connection invites you in. It does not coerce you. Now we move to another tactic, one that is quieter than guilt, sharper than blame, and even more invisible than false vulnerability. It does not raise its voice. It raises your confusion. It is the tactic of delay. You have heard the words before, let me think about it, maybe next week. I just need some time. But deep down you sense the truth. They have no intention of following through. This is the delay loop, one of the most subtle yet powerful manipulation strategies. Why is it so effective? Because it keeps hope alive. It creates the illusion of progress while holding you in place. Each, maybe later, drips just enough possibility to prevent you from walking away. And when you bring it up again, they say you are impatient or worse, too demanding. Nietzsche remarked, the most common lie is the one we tell ourselves. And here the lie they feed you is that delay equals care. But behind every maybe later is usually a quiet no that they are too afraid to admit. What is really being manipulated is your time, your sense of momentum, your ability to move forward without them. You stop asking. You start waiting. You justify their silence as space, when in truth it is a leash. How do you break free? Refuse to negotiate with uncertainty. If someone cannot give you clarity, give yourself closure. Say it once. Say it clearly. And if they hesitate, take their delay as your decision. Because your piece is not a puzzle they get to rearrange endlessly. Then comes comparison, another quiet weapon. You were not even competing, yet suddenly you feel as though you have already lost. They say, Sarah handled this so much better. Or, most people would have done this by now. Or, others were more disciplined than you. At first, it sounds like feedback, maybe even encouragement. But it is not. It is a silent war against your confidence. It is designed to keep you striving for approval you will never receive. Why is this tactic so powerful? Because it weaponizes your desire to belong. Nietzsche believed that comparison is a form of control used by the mediocre to chain the exceptional. They do not need to insult you directly. They only need to praise someone else in your presence. What happens next? You doubt yourself. You begin to perform. You work harder not out of joy, but out of desperation to prove your worth. Your energy is drained in a race you never chose to enter. How do you stop it? By removing yourself from invisible competitions. You do not need to outperform a ghost. You do not need to live in someone else's shadow to be valuable. And above all, you do not need to prove your worth to someone who keeps shifting the standard. Recognize comparison for what it is, not guidance but submission disguised as motivation. Then step out of the race. When you refuse to play, the game ends. They remember every favor they gave you, but somehow they forget everything you did for them. This is not simple forgetfulness. It is selective memory, a tactic of emotional accounting designed to keep you in debt. When someone highlights their generosity but conveniently erases your efforts, they create an artificial imbalance. They say, "After all I've done for you," but never mention the nights you stayed awake to help them. They recall the money they lent but not the times you gave more. They point to their kindness while deleting yours from the record. Nietzsche once warned, "Beware of those who keep emotional scorecards, for in their hands, giving is no longer love, it is leverage." That is exactly what this tactic does. It convinces you that you owe them. And slowly, you start to believe it. You feel guilty for asking for anything. You overcompensate to balance a debt that should never exist. Your worth becomes measured by a distorted ledger, one they control. How do you break free? Step outside the frame. You do not owe what was freely given. You do not have to match their curated memory. If someone weaponizes kindness, it was never kindness at all. When they bring up what they've done, calmly say, "I wasn't keeping track. I didn't know we were counting." Then stop engaging. Gratitude is beautiful when it flows naturally, but gratitude under pressure is not grace. It is control dressed as virtue. The next tactic is even more deceptive. It is fragility disguised as honesty. They mess up but make it your fault. They forget plans, miss deadlines, break promises, and when you confront them they say, "I'm just broken. You know I'm like this. I never claimed to be perfect." And suddenly the conversation shifts. It is no longer about their behavior. It is about their pain. You end up comforting them instead of holding them accountable. This is the self-sabotage mirror. It uses weakness as a shield. It makes you feel cruel for expecting responsibility. Why is it so effective? Because you are not heartless. You see someone appear wounded and your anger softens. You trade your frustration for their comfort. You become their caretaker instead of the one who deserves repair. Carl Jung captured this truth when he said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." In this tactic, helplessness is not genuine, it is strategy. True weakness does not deflect responsibility. But when every consequence is turned into a sad story, forgiveness becomes a demand, not a request. How do you respond? With clarity, not cruelty. You can acknowledge someone's pain without excusing their pattern. You can show compassion without cleaning up their chaos. And when their apologies carry no change, their fragility is no longer innocence. It is manipulation. Hold them to their own words, not harshly but consistently. That is when the mirror cracks. Now consider another trap, controlled chaos. There is always a crisis. Always a fire only you can put out. Always an emergency that pulls you in. At first, it feels meaningful to be needed. You are the calm in their storm, the one they depend on. But over time, the storm never ends. This is not coincidence. It is strategy. Controlled chaos thrives on urgency. Your energy becomes their fuel. Your focus becomes their resource. They say, "I don't know what I'd do without you." You're the only one who understands. But look closer. Their life is always falling apart. They always need your help, yet they never change their behavior. They ignore your advice. They disappear when you need them. They need you until you need boundaries. Nietzsche observed, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." In these storms, you are drawn into their disorder, and over time you begin to drown with them. They create dependency by conditioning you to equate love with rescue and support with sacrifice. So how do you escape? By refusing to stay in the loop. By stepping out even if it causes discomfort. You are not abandoning them. You are refusing to let their chaos anchor itself to your peace. Say, "I care, but I cannot carry this for you." Then let silence do what words cannot. Because silence becomes a boundary, and boundaries are liberation. It often begins quietly. A comment delivered with a gentle tone. A raised eyebrow when you share your excitement. A question wrapped in concern. "Are you sure you can handle that? Don't get your hopes up. I just don't want to see you get hurt." On the surface it sounds like care. But beneath the softness, something else is happening. They are planting a seed. Not a seed of guidance. A seed of doubt. This is the disempowerment tactic. It is subtle, invisible, and dangerously effective. Because it does not attack your actions. It attacks your belief in yourself. It does not say, "Don't do it." It whispers, "You probably can't." Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." The power of this tactic is that it pulls your gaze outward. It makes you measure your strength against their doubts instead of your own truth. And slowly, without realizing it, you start to shrink. Here is how it unfolds. You share a dream and they respond with hesitation. You hit a milestone and they downplay it. You celebrate progress and they warn you not to get comfortable. Each moment seems small. But over time, those small drops erode your confidence. Nietzsche once remarked, "Convince someone that they are small and they will build their own cage." That is what doubt does. It convinces you to limit yourself. Not because you are incapable, but because you have internalized someone else's uncertainty. The danger lies in repetition. One doubtful remark may not matter, but when it becomes a pattern, it transforms into a voice inside your head. A voice that sounds like your own, telling you that you are not ready, not good enough, not meant to succeed. How do you take back your power? By identifying the voice. Ask yourself, do I truly believe this, or was I told to believe it? Separate your inner truth from the echoes of others. When you hear yourself say, "I don't think I can," complete the sentence with, "Because someone once made me doubt myself." And then move forward anyway. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom." That dizziness often arrives when you step beyond the limits others set for you. But it is proof you are free. Their fear is not your future. Their doubts are not your destiny. And your greatness does not require their permission. Now, as you recognize the seed of doubt, you begin to see the larger pattern. The guilt that twisted your morality. The mirroring that turned your certainty against you. The false openness that cornered your empathy. The endless delays that kept you waiting. The comparisons that chipped away at your worth. The selective memory that manufactured debt. The fragility that disguised manipulation. The chaos that bound you in storms that were not yours. And finally, the doubts that invaded your belief in yourself. Each tactic is a thread. Woven together, they form a net. A structure that is not meant to protect you, but to hold you in place. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Now you have made it conscious. You can see the strings that once moved unseen. And when you see them, you can choose to cut them. Silence can become your weapon. Clarity can become your resistance. Boundaries can become your liberation. Because manipulation thrives on confusion. But once clarity enters, the performance ends. And the greatest realization is this: you are no longer a puppet. Now you see it. The guilt that pressed on your morality. The mirror that twisted blame back onto you. The false openness that cornered your empathy. The endless delays that drained your hope. The comparisons that shrank your worth. The selective memory that manufactured debt. The fragility that disguised manipulation. The chaos that demanded your rescue. The quiet seeds of doubt that eroded your belief in yourself. Each tactic seemed small on its own. Each one felt like an isolated moment. But together they formed a system, a hidden framework designed to reshape not just how you see others, but how you see yourself. The philosopher Epictetus once wrote, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views which they take of things." These tactics aim to control your views, to make you question your judgment, your strength, and even your reality. That is why they are so effective. They do not need to imprison you with walls. They only need you to doubt the key already in your hand. Carl Jung reminded us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Manipulation thrives on preventing that. It pulls you away from your own center. It distracts you with obligations, distortions, and illusions. It convinces you to hand over your freedom in exchange for approval. But you do not need to keep playing the role they write for you. You can step out of the script. You can reclaim the authorship of your own story. By learning the language of manipulation and refusing to speak it. When guilt whispers, you remember your worth is not measured by compliance. When blame twists, you anchor yourself to the facts. When false vulnerability presses, you pause and check whether you feel connected or cornered. When delays string you along, you give yourself closure. When comparisons wound you, you step out of the invisible race. When selective memory traps you, you stop keeping score. When fragility demands leniency without change, you hold steady with compassion and clarity. When chaos seeks to bind you, you step away and let silence carry weight. When doubt takes root, you expose the voice as not your own and move forward anyway. Nietzsche challenged us with a simple but piercing thought. No one can build you the bridge on which you must cross the river of life. No one but you yourself. That is the ultimate truth behind all of this. No matter who tries to pull the strings, the steps are yours. The river is yours. The crossing is yours. What happens when you begin to live with that clarity? The manipulator loses their stage. The tactics lose their power. You stop dancing to music you never chose. And in that silence you hear something else, your own voice. A voice that had been there all along, waiting for space to speak. This is the beginning of freedom. Not the freedom that arrives in sudden rebellion, but the freedom born of steady boundaries. The freedom that comes when you trust yourself more than the illusions others offer. The freedom to live without constantly shrinking, apologizing, or performing for approval that never satisfies. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is now in your hands. Not because the world has changed, but because you have learned to see it clearly. So if there is one truth to carry with you, let it be this. Silence is power. Clarity is resistance. Boundaries are liberation. You are no longer their puppet. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever again.